What if Palpatine's plan failed ridiculously? Let's go through 3 short stories where everything falls apart in the strangest ways possible. Starting with, what if Yoda killed Palpatine in Attack of the Clones? What would have happened then? Let's find out. The giant towers of the Republic Executive Building reached toward the heavens as traffic clogged the smoggy Coruscant sky. Inside the Chancellor's office, Palpatine sat behind his desk with 2 red guards flanking the doorway. Yoda, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Mace Windu sat across from him, discussing the recent assassination attempt on Senator Padme Amidala and the growing separatist crisis. "I don't know how much longer I can hold off the vote, my friends," Palpatine was saying. "More and more star systems are joining the separatists." The meeting about the growing possibility of war and the investigation into Padme's attempted murder proceeded until a hologram of Darwak flickered to life on Palpatine's desk. The aide began chittering in his native tongue, and Palpatine started to respond. But Yoda's Geimer stick struck the floor with a sharp crack. "Coruscant this is. Basic you will speak," Yoda demanded. Palpatine ignored the Jedi Master completely, understanding the aide's chittering perfectly. It was merely an announcement that Senator Amidala and the other committee members had arrived. "Send them in," he replied in a smooth tone. Yoda's ears flattened against his head at the blatant disrespect. "When speak I do, listen you will." Palpatine turned to him then, his voice taking on an edge. "I am the Supreme Chancellor. I will conduct my office as I see fit. The Senate's traditions you mock," Yoda retorted. The council members traded glances around the chamber as the familiar tension rose. Ki-Adi-Mundi caught Plo Koon's eye, the Keldor's mask tilting slightly in quiet warning. Luminara and Kit Fisto shared a knowing look, while Mace Windu stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Only Barriss seemed caught off guard, clearly unfamiliar with the Grand Master's beliefs. But Yoda was just getting started. "My ancestors built this planet. Thousands of years we maintained order. Ancestors?" Palpatine cut in with casual disdain. "Curious claim from a species so rare that the galaxy's historians have never even recorded your homeworld. Listen, you will." Yoda's voice rose. The door slid open as Padme, Captain Typho, and the other committee members entered, freezing at the unexpected scene before them. Yoda jabbed his Geimer stick toward the window. "While in the lower levels aliens sit idle, to our society nothing they contribute. Order for millennia. Maintained we have. No one survives doing nothing on Coruscant," Palpatine interrupted coolly. "Unless there's some 900-year-old Jedi warming a council chair." The assembled politicians gasped. Yoda's eyes narrowed to slits. With a primal roar that startled everyone present, he ignited his lightsaber and launched himself at Palpatine. Caught off guard, Palpatine's careful facade cracked. Lightning erupted from his fingers as he desperately defended himself. The room plunged into chaos as the truth was revealed. The Supreme Chancellor was a Sith Lord. The other Jedi Masters sprang into action, their blades igniting in unison. In seconds, the architect of the galaxy's darkness fell beneath their combined assault, his grand schemes dying with him. Hours after Palpatine's death, Yoda stood before the gathered media, his serene expression masking the truth. "Through the Force, the darkness I sensed, the Sith Lord's presence revealed itself to me," Yoda was telling the assembled media personnel. The other council members maintained the story, cementing Yoda as the hero who had saved the Republic from the Sith. But Padme Amidala had witnessed the truth. Yoda's outburst repulsed her. Unlike Yoda, she and her Nubian handmaidens treated everyone equally, whether in politics or when collecting particularly vocal HoloNet critics for their hunting games across their private reserve worlds. She and her handmaidens tracked down Yoda's spice supplier to the lower levels. After a quick operation to install an explosive chip in his skull, standard procedure for their persuasion tactics, the dealer readily agreed to lace Yoda's next batch of spice with concentrated toxin. When Yoda smoked the tainted spice, centuries of building up tolerance prevented the poison from killing him outright. Instead, it made the spice feel more potent than usual. The ancient Jedi Master, believing his Outer Rim supplier had been scamming him with weaker spice till now, flew into a rage. The combination of toxin and fury triggered something in his brain. His own Force lightning manifested uncontrollably, scrambling his neural pathways and triggering a fatal seizure. They found him in his quarters the next morning. In her private chambers, Padme smiled, feeling that true justice had been served against Yoda. Her satisfaction was cut short, however, as Dorme presented her ceremonial flamethrower. They had a group of Geonosians cornered in the northern sector of her private hunting reserve, and she didn't want to keep them waiting. The end. What if Shaak Ti let her intrusive thoughts win? What would happen then? We pick up with her stationed on Kamino. Let's begin. Shaak Ti stood at the observation window, watching raindrops chase each other down the transparent steel. The constant downpour of Kamino had become a metronome to her deteriorating thoughts. She had first noticed it 3 standard months into her assignment. A Kaminoan administrator had leaned over her shoulder to examine clone training data, and the thought had flashed unbidden through her mind. How cleanly her lightsaber would sever that elegant neck. The notion had disturbed her deeply. She had meditated for hours afterward, seeking balance, but the thoughts persisted, grew, multiplied. By the end of her first year on the water world, Shaak Ti found herself calculating angles of attack whenever a Kaminoan entered a room. The graceful bend of their necks, the slender connection between head and shoulders. It called to some primal part of her consciousness. Master T? A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find a Kaminoan technician waiting expectantly. The creature's neck curved in that distinctive arc that now dominated her every waking thought. "The modified training sequence you requested," the technician said, extending a data cylinder. Shaak Ti accepted it with a nod, careful to maintain distance. "Thank you." After the technician departed, she composed a message to the Jedi Council, requesting reassignment, her third such request. The response came swiftly. All senior Jedi were deployed to critical posts. The only opening was on Kashyyyk. Death was preferable to Kashyyyk. Shaak Ti deleted the message. She would endure Kamino. She would master these thoughts. But mastery proved elusive. She began leaving her lightsaber locked in her quarters, carrying only a training baton for demonstrations with the clones. It didn't stop the visions, the flash of blue plasma, the clean separation, the satisfying thud of a head hitting the floor. But it removed immediate temptation. She sought chemical solutions. Death sticks, lunaweed, unrefined spice. None silenced the thoughts. They became her constant companions, more present than the Force itself. In meditation, instead of tranquility, she found only variations on execution. How quickly, how quietly, how many she could fell before an alarm sounded. Then came the incident with CT-5385, Tup. The clone had experienced some form of breakdown. He had targeted and killed a Jedi Master, repeating, "Good soldiers follow orders," like a broken holo recording. What followed was a cascade of revelations. Kaminoan doctor Nala Se had been unable to determine the cause of Tup's illness. In desperation, ARC Trooper CT-5555 had located and removed what appeared to be a tumor from Tup's brain with the help of a medical droid. Tup died shortly after the procedure, and Fives was placed under arrest. The situation escalated when Fives escaped custody after discovering a medical droid swapping the case containing the tumor. Shaak Ti had tracked him through Tipoca City as he uncovered the truth. The tumor was actually a biochip, implanted in every clone at the embryonic stage. Shaak Ti had eventually caught up with Fives in the embryo chamber, where Nala Se had confirmed the chip's existence, claiming they were designed to inhibit aggressive tendencies inherited from Jango Fett. Despite Nala Se's protest that the clones were Kaminoan property and Fives should be destroyed, Shaak Ti had asserted Republic authority over the clones and ordered both Fives and the chip to be sent to Coruscant for review. Inwardly, Shaak Ti had felt a surge of relief. This incident provided her with the perfect justification to leave Kamino, perhaps permanently. As she issued directives to the clone troopers for transport preparations, her mind calculated the political advantage. She would insist on accompanying the evidence personally, argue that a Jedi Master's supervision was essential for such a sensitive matter. The Council could hardly object to her request to remain on Coruscant afterward, not when she could cite her unique knowledge of the situation as crucial to the investigation. Freedom from Kamino, freedom from the constant rain, the sterile corridors, the graceful necks that haunted her thoughts. This is what awaited her on Coruscant. After issuing orders for transport preparations, Shaak Ti turned to leave the laboratory complex. She moved with purpose toward the exit, already composing her arguments for the Jedi Cartel's High Council. "Master T," Nala Se's voice halted her progress. "A moment of your time." Shaak Ti turned to find the Kaminoan scientist standing in the doorway of an adjacent analysis chamber. The rest of the staff had departed, leaving the area deserted save for the two of them. Against her better judgment, Shaak Ti followed Nala Se into the chamber. The door sealed behind them automatically, a standard security protocol that now felt like a trap. They stood alone among the gleaming equipment and softly humming machines. These inhibitor chips are merely a safeguard against the aggressive nature of the Jango Fett template, Nala Se explained again, her voice melodic and detached. Without them, the clones would be unmanageable. Shaak Ti barely heard the words, so close to escape, so close to freedom from this world, and now this. The Kaminoan's neck bent and straightened as she gestured toward holographic displays of clone brain scans. The Togruta found herself measuring distances, planning movements with clinical precision. Her fingers brushed metal, and the realization hit like a stun blast. The saber, not locked away, not hidden, it was there. Fives' chaos had forced it back onto her belt, a risk she despised but couldn't avoid. For so long she'd been careful, keeping it out of reach. Now, when her control was at its weakest, it sat within arm's length. The Force seemed to whisper to her, or perhaps it was her own rationalization taking form. The chips, a Kaminoan plot to seize control of the Republic Army, a threat that must be eliminated. Your legal safety is assured. Nalase continued speaking, gesturing to a terminal displaying the neural pathways affected by the chip. This matter should end here. We cannot allow these specimens to leave Kamino. Trooper 5s and the chips must remain under our supervision for proper study. These clones are Kaminoan property, designed to our specifications and should... The lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss that cut through Nalase's explanation. Shaak Ti felt a strange disconnection, as if watching herself from outside her body. Her arm moved of its own accord, guided by something deeper than thought. The blue blade hummed through the air, encountered minimal resistance, and completed its arc. Nalase's head hit the floor with a thud that resonated through Shaak Ti's mandrels. The Togruta Jedi Master stood motionless, lightsaber still humming in her hand. The sound of the head striking the laboratory floor had been exactly as she had imagined it. Satisfying, final, perfect. For the first time in years, the intrusive thoughts fell silent, but in their place came something new, an insatiable hunger. Shaak Ti stared at Nalase's headless body. One wasn't enough. The silence in her mind would be temporary unless she finished what she'd started. She accessed the facility's communication system with her command codes. Her voice betrayed nothing as she issued a facility-wide announcement. Attention all Kaminoan personnel. An emergency briefing regarding the inhibitor chip situation is required immediately. Report to Assembly Hall RX-7 within the hour. Attendance is mandatory. The message dispatched, she moved with the efficiency of a predator closing in. First, she erased the security recordings of the laboratory. Then she disposed of Nalase's body in a waste incineration unit. Finally, she made her way to Assembly Hall RX-7, arriving early to prepare. The hall was massive, designed to accommodate clone battalion briefings. High ceilings, minimal furnishings, a single central platform, multiple entrances, each with security protocols that could be overridden with Jedi clearance. Shaak Ti positioned herself at the center of the platform as the Kaminoans began to file in. Their long necks swayed with each graceful step. Scientists, geneticists, administrators, all the architects of the clone army gathering in one place. When the last had entered, Shaak Ti activated her command console. With a single input, every entrance sealed with reinforced blast doors. Master T, one of the senior administrators inquired, what is the meaning of... Her lightsaber ignited. What followed was not combat. Combat implied opposition, resistance, strategy. This was execution. Shaak Ti moved like a storm, the force flowing through her with terrifying clarity. She leapt 20 meters to the first cluster of Kaminoans, her blade carving through 3 necks in a single sweep. Before the bodies hit the ground, she was elsewhere, a blur of motion too fast for the eye to track. The Kaminoans tried to flee, their long limbs carrying them toward the sealed exits. Some attempted to use communication devices, only to discover all signals had been jammed. Others cowered behind furniture, as if mere objects could shield them from the will of the Force. Shaak Ti ricocheted from wall to ceiling to floor, her movements unpredictable, her attacks unstoppable. She twisted between 2 administrators, her blade tracing a perfect figure 8 that removed both heads simultaneously. She flipped over a group of fleeing scientists, landing in their path, and with a force-enhanced spin, became a whirlwind of plasma that reduced them to a circle of fallen bodies. The Kaminoan's terror filled the Force like a narcotic, feeding her power. She drew upon it, channeled it, became it. For each Kaminoan who fell, her speed increased, her precision sharpened, her connection to the Force deepened. 15 minutes after it began, it was over. Over 1,000 Kaminoan bodies lay dead. Shaak Ti stood alone among the carnage, her breathing controlled, her posture perfect. Not a drop of blood stained her robes. Her lightsaber had cauterized each wound instantly. She activated her comm unit, connecting directly to the Jedi Council. Masters, she reported, her voice steady. I regret to inform you of a grave situation on Kamino. The Kaminoans were planning to take over the Republic. The Council received her report with concern but no suspicion. They would never doubt one of their own. Their inhibitor chips were designed not to control clone aggression, but to control the clones themselves, she continued, fabricating evidence as she spoke. The Kaminoans' actions, she explained, had forced her to defend herself. The death toll was regrettable, but unavoidable. They had attacked her upon discovering she had uncovered their plot. But the Jedi Council believed her fabricated evidence without question, and decided to use this incident against Palpatine. They hated Palpatine solely for disrupting their profitable Outer Rim spice cartel and demanding his own cut, delaying their operations until he received his percentage. The Council seized on Shaak Ti's report as the perfect excuse to eliminate him. The entire Council convened, with Yoda suggesting they assassinate Palpatine and plant a red lightsaber as evidence he was a Sith, a plan the others eagerly embraced. The Council, minus Shaak Ti, surrounded Palpatine in his office and declared he must die for his crimes against the Force. "What is the meaning of this?" Palpatine demanded. Yoda replied, "Our source is that we made it the Criff up." The other Council members ignored this admission because Yoda had not been the same since he had that stroke 200 years ago. Before they could attack, Palpatine produced his own crimson lightsaber, making their fake one unnecessary. Despite their numbers, several masters fell quickly to Palpatine's unexpected skill, until Fisto threw raw spice in his face. Yoda, clearly enhanced by substances from the temple's evidence vault, leapt forward with erratic movements and dismembered the disoriented Chancellor. Hours later, the Council addressed the press. Yoda's pupils constricted to pinpoints as he announced they had prevented a great darkness. No questions were asked, no investigation followed, and the Republic continued under their watchful guidance. Count Dooku met his own end shortly after. When planning an offensive on the Mid-Rim, he told General Grievous to bring 20 battle droids as backup, a number that felt big enough. Outnumbered by Republic forces, both Separatist leaders perished in the resulting battle. Meanwhile, Shaak Ti was hailed as a hero across the galaxy. Holotubers created dramatic edits of her supposedly being attacked by hundreds of animalistic Kaminoans before heroically slaughtering them all. These videos, set to soaring orchestral music with titles like "Jedi Master Destroys Kaminoan Conspiracy," epic, garnered billions of views. Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala discovered the truth about these events much later. They had been absent on their 8th diplomatic mission to Naboo that month, blissfully unaware as they lounged in the fields of Padme's royal weed farm, high on premium Luna weed. As for Master Yoda, he became convinced he was some kind of god, claiming it was the only reasonable explanation for how his plan to frame Palpatine as a Sith had actually made him a Sith. Ki-Adi-Mundi called this stupid, so to prove him wrong, Yoda jumped out a window and promptly became one with the Force, and they all lived happily ever after. The end. What if the Jedi Council's short position collapsed? What would happen then? We pick up with the Jedi Cartel's High Council, the highest of the 5 cartel councils, going over their short position. Let's begin. The Jedi Cartel's High Council gathered in their tower's peak, the sunset casting Coruscant's endless cityscape in credits-colored hues. Their current financial predicament had begun 3 rotations ago, when Anakin Skywalker brought them intelligence straight from Chancellor Palpatine's office. General Grievous had been located on Utapau. The Council had moved swiftly, with Grievous's capture imminent and the Separatist leadership soon to follow. The Techno-Union's stock value would inevitably plummet. The Council saw an opportunity too profitable to ignore. They had borrowed against every criminal enterprise in their considerable portfolio, spice runners, smuggling operations, even their prestigious pod racing circuit, to amass a short position of breathtaking scale, 50 billion galactic credits, leveraged 10 to 1. Now, as market projections shimmed in the chamber's center, Master Yoda perched atop his council seat, dispensing what he believed to be financial wisdom. Leverage or leverage not. There is no hedging. Mace Windu's fingers drummed against his armrest. The other councils are asking questions about our sudden resource allocation. Other councils? Yoda's ears twitched dismissively. Background characters they are. Screen time they have not. Understand markets? They do not. Plo Koon's mask gave a mechanical sigh. Our position is sound. Once Grievous falls, the Separatist leadership will crumble. The Techno-Union's market capitalization cannot survive the revelation of their role in funding the war. The question remains, Ki-Adi-Mundi interjected, who do we send to ensure this outcome? The mission requires someone who can both apprehend Grievous and ensure the evidence of Techno-Union Separatist dealings becomes public knowledge. Anakin Skywalker, hovering near the chamber's entrance, stepped forward. I volunteered to— No. Yoda's Geimer stick cracked against his seat. A master of synthetic credit default swaps we need. One versed in the ancient art of regulatory arbitrage. Obi-Wan's expertise in corporate shell company formation makes him the obvious choice, Mace agreed. Anakin, you may assist Master T in her stock market meditation, a technique that allows one to influence the minds of corporate board members during earnings calls. In his private office, Palpatine listened to the transmission from the surveillance device he'd hidden in Anakin's lightsaber. The young Jedi's habit of concealing death sticks in the saber's pommel had provided the perfect opportunity to plant the bug during their last meeting. Now that same device was delivering him everything he needed to destroy the Jedi's financial empire. Palpatine calculated quickly. The Jedi had borrowed 50 billion credits against their position, using a 10-to-1 leverage ratio. Their total exposure was 500 billion credits. A mere 20% rise in Techno-Union stock would trigger catastrophic margin calls. One encrypted comm call to Grievous later, the Separatist Council evacuated to Mustafar's private banking haven. Then came Palpatine's masterstroke. He arranged for the Techno-Union to announce HoloFans, a subscription-based platform featuring exotic entertainment. The announcement promised 3 months of free access to build their user base, with projections showing hundreds of billions in subscription revenue once the trial period ended. Market analysts swooned over the platform's revolutionary engagement metrics, and the stock soared 300% in a single rotation. The council chamber erupted in chaos as margin call notifications flooded their datapads. Loan sharks from the Outer Rim began calling in their markers. The other 4 councils demanded emergency sessions. One option remains, Yoda declared, his ears drooping. To the Royal Casino on Cantonica. We must go. A high-stakes sabak tournament there is. Put it all on black, we shall. Master Yoda, Mace began. That's roulette, not silence. One with the cards, I am. The other council members exchanged uneasy glances. After liquidating their entire spice reserves in a series of hasty transactions, they had amassed enough emergency credits for one final gambit. The council, Anakin included, chartered an unmarked freighter to Cantonica. They chose the Royal Casino for its reputation of discretion with large-sum games. Unbeknownst to them, every word of their desperate planning transmitted through the bug in Anakin's saber directly to Palpatine's earpiece. The council members stiffened in surprise as Chancellor Palpatine strolled into the high-stakes room of the Royal Casino. Their eyes followed him as he approached their table with an easy smile. Ah, Master Jedi, what an unexpected pleasure, Palpatine said, adjusting his senatorial robes. I occasionally visit Cantonica to make charitable donations to the casino. His eyes twinkled with self-deprecating humor. Without waiting for an invitation, he settled into an empty seat at the sabak table. The council members returned his smile with diplomatic politeness, none quite reaching their eyes. One hand later, Yoda's claims of smelling the future of the cards crumbled as Palpatine's full house swept away the council's entire emergency fund. At the bar section, Anakin seethed watching Yoda squander their entire fund in a single hand. He could have at least been the one to lose it all himself. His fingers found the hidden compartment of his lightsaber empty, not a single death stick left. He hurled the weapon at the floor in anger. Through the Force, Anakin sensed a sudden flash of discomfort. His eyes darted to Palpatine, catching the Chancellor's hand, moving to his ear before quickly returning to his cards. A small device had popped free from the saber's casing, skittering across the polished surface. Anakin picked up the tiny metal component, turning it over in his palm. A surveillance bug. Anakin moved between the council members, keeping his voice low. The Chancellor planted a listening device in my lightsaber. When I threw it, he reacted to the feedback in his earpiece. He knew our entire plan. The short position, coming to Cantonica, everything. He's been playing us from the start. The council members maintained their composed expressions, decades of diplomatic training masking their growing anger as Palpatine continued dealing cards, believing his deception still intact. After Yoda's catastrophic first-round loss, Palpatine had methodically stripped every high-stakes player at the table of their holdings, shipping magnates, banking clan officials, and corporate titans, all falling to his seemingly unstoppable run. With practiced casualness, he transferred his winnings, 800 billion credits, to a numbered account, the routing codes disappearing from his datapad before anyone could glimpse them. After discovering Palpatine's surveillance device, the council members and Anakin gathered in their casino suite. They exchanged knowing glances before beginning their performance. Master Yoda, Mace spoke deliberately, perhaps we should discuss our contingency. The buried reserves, you mean? Yoda's ears perked up. 50 years of spice profits, converted to pure orodium. More than cover our losses, it would. The access codes in that case on Coruscant. We should retrieve them immediately, Ki-Adi Mundi said. The old manufacturing district, Warehouse 17, Sub-Level 3. Behind the defunct shield generator array, Plo Koon added, the security systems are minimal. Anyone could simply walk in and take it. Anakin paced the room. We should move quickly. Those codes could make someone very, very wealthy. Below in the casino, Palpatine's expression remained neutral as the conversation fed through his earpiece. Within an hour, his ship departed for Coruscant. In Warehouse 17's Sub-Level 3, Palpatine found not secret codes, but the entire Jedi Council waiting. The confrontation ended swiftly. They secured him to a durasteel chair, its seat strategically hollowed out. A length of fiber cord lay coiled nearby, its purpose suggesting methods of persuasion uncomfortably familiar to those versed in interrogation techniques. The council positioned a tall stool beside the chair so Yoda could reach him. Your account number and password. Give us you must, Yoda demanded, raising the cord. Or great pain you will suffer. Mace pinched the bridge of his nose. Master Yoda, we're all force sensitive. We can just probe his mind. The council collectively paused, then shared embarrassed looks. After a quick mind probe revealed both the account numbers and Palpatine's Sith identity, they dispatched him with swift efficiency. No Sith could be allowed to live, especially one who'd outplayed them in the markets. Yoda, frustrated at missing his chance at torture, angrily swung the fiber cord at a durasteel support beam. The cord rebounded with force-enhanced speed, catching the ancient master in the temple and ending his 900 years of questionable financial advice. The remaining council masters and Anakin, who was not a master, fabricated evidence suggesting Yoda and Palpatine had been co-conspirators in the failed stock manipulation scheme. They quickly apprehended Grievous, seized the banking clan's assets through a series of cleverly structured default swaps, and used the proceeds to clear their debts. The other four councils never did get their speaking parts, though they were briefly considered for a spin-off series about municipal bond trading. So that is it for this episode of What If Palpatine's Plans Failed Miserably, or maybe that will be the next one. Anyways, these short crack give videos, Star Wars crack gives, anyways, these are uploaded about a week early on Patreon, which you can access for $1 or more a month. So if you're interested in that, do check out my Patreon, link should be in the description. And that is it. Thank you for watching and stay hydrated on the water of life.